My friends, this is Sunday, 9 days left for the US elections, important elections as we all know, and it's going to have an impact all across the world. What was it that I've heard from the ground there is that obviously the early voting is fast catching. It's just moving at a very fast pace. Almost 50 some million have voted, according to my brother. Expected last year, I think last election 135 million had voted. This time I think expectation is 150, about 150 to 152. Which basically says that we are running up to almost 30% of the expected vote. While this early vote, there's not a linear projection you can have to suggest that it's in favor of the Democrats or whether it's going to result in any electoral gain in electoral votes. I think it's an important indicator that that the percentage of voting is going to really ramp itself up as versus the last time. Generals rule of thumb suggests that when that happens, when the voting percentage is higher and dramatically higher than the previous time, then the incumbent generally is in trouble. But you don't know, right? And the only way, it's really funny, I didn't know this. Only some states, about 13 of them, are allowed to actually declare the early votes in terms of Democrats versus Republicans. Here, of the two states that I heard of, Florida and North Carolina, and in both these cases, the advantage to the Democrats continues to be sizable. Like for example, in Florida, it seems to be about 400,000 votes are in favor of the Democrats have voted. About 200 odd thousand Republicans have voted. 50,000 independents, where it's expected that the independents probably would have tilted towards the Democrats. So Democrats have a sizable lead. So similarly, this is the case in North Carolina. Democrats have a fairly sizable lead in the voting that has happened during this early vote period. Interesting times. What were the stuff in news before the much talked awaited debate that happened? Trump's campaign coffers shrink to 63 million 2 weeks before elections day. It says in latest FEC filing, Trump's campaign cash on hand has dwindled. And it says Trump says before coronavirus, he never planned on campaigning in Erie, Pennsylvania. We had this thing won. Well, that's kind of assumption. Michigan and Pennsylvania say they can finish counting ballots within 3 days of the election. Florida sees a record early vote, with Democrats casting more mail-in ballots than Republicans. Records shed new light on Trump's business pursuits in China, including a bank account there came at a wrong time just before the debate. Trump cuts a 60-minute interview short and then taunts Leslie Stahl on Twitter. I'm not sure why he does that, right? It's just so self-defeating, right? Then what do we have? Nothing else that I have to report here. Then another one, forward on politics, media watch Democratic super PAC. This is really interesting, right? It says until a month ago, the biggest spending Democratic super PAC in the general elections had aired only a single television ad during the campaign. Now the group Future Forward is on pace to spend more than 108 million on television ads supporting Joe Biden and 2 Senate candidates, according to advertising analytics and ad tracking firm. The group is barreling into the race a month after Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor and presidential candidate, pledged to spend 100 million on to support Mr. Biden exclusively in Florida. But what is important? The result is yet another yawning advantage on the airwaves for Mr. Biden, who has already outspent Mr. President Trump in TV advertising by nearly a margin of 2 to 1. This really does not actually suggest victory, right? Because it happened previously with Hillary, right? But you know what happened there, right? But what is important to note here is, though Texas has the second most electoral college votes in the country, it is an extraordinarily expensive state to run. I don't know how many Indians know that, right? And ad campaign in. And given that Texas hasn't voted for a Democratic presidential candidate since '76, spending money there can appear to campaign strategists like a quick quixotic Napoleon invades Russia strategy, even for a well-funded campaign like Mr. Biden. However, but Future Forward is blazing into Texas. Its biggest presence will be part of a major ad campaign planned to support the Democratic Senate candidate M.J. Hager in her bid to unseat Senator John Cornyn. Important. Then he says, the mere presence of an ad campaign in Texas is evidence of the vastness of the Democratic television advantage. Wow. That's the startup. Then you had a situation where it says USC spat over poll rivals China business links. Report reveals Trump had Trump's bank account in China. Not that, in business you can have a bank account in China. He just didn't report it. That's the point. And this kind of gives and gave Biden a chance to reposit to the Hunter Biden attack that was being forced onto him by Trump. Yeah. And this is what it says. Ahead of final debate, Trump faces China account questions. US President and his challenger gear up for the final presidential debate in Tennessee. Now the question is, what happened at the debate? Where did the debate go? More after the break. Welcome back, folks, to go to the next chapter. Run up to the what was happening. Run up to the week that led up to the debate. First was this news: U.S. voters lose trust in Trump's economic flair. Only 32% believed they were better off financially than they were when Trump took office. These are important points, right? Then it says Biden favored on key issues. Poll finds fear the pandemic will worsen. It says a majority would like to see a nationwide mask mandate. So when you think Joseph Biden leads J. Trump even among voters aged 45 and older who typically lean Republican. So in total, Biden was 50, Trump was 41. With men, gender, 42, Trump led for 42, Biden was 42, Trump 48. Women, look at that. 58% for Biden, and that's going to be a game changer, and only 35% for Trump, right? Then you have age 18 to 29, Biden is at 58%, that's unbelievable, over 30% for Trump, right? Even 30 to 44 is 47 versus 39. What's interesting is the 65 plus, which is also going to be a game changer, which is again Biden advantage 51% versus 41% for Trump. That's really, really interesting. Well, that's happening is the second Catholic to be the president, going for presidency, as Biden places faith in his religion to win swing states. Democratic candidate makes gains among Catholics who backed Trump in 2016. The other thing is Biden's foreign policy theme, America's back. That's going to be the major change. I don't know where India fits in, but what is important, it's going to be able to build a larger coalition against China, and that can only be beneficial to us. Then you have another article which says US alleges Iran, Russia meddling in election as Obama jumps into fray. And this is important. Former President Obama made a fiery campaign appearance on behalf of Joe Biden in Philadelphia on Wednesday, ridiculing Trump. Can you imagine if I had secret Chinese bank account when I was running for re-election? They would have called me Beijing Barry. The point is, what difference is Obama going to make? I'll tell you what, he's going to get the African American voter out. That's going to be a game changer, and he's hopefully going to tilt the youth more in favorably of Biden, which one sees is happening. And what was important is what Shobha Day writes. Obama nailed it in 2 words. Our netas listening, though she's talking about how this connects to India. But what is important is what I see here. When Barack Obama speaks, the world listens. Earlier this week, he said there are consequences to actions. It affects how the world looks at America. That behavior matters. Character matters. Bingo, Obama nailed it in just those 2 words. Character matters, right? And that's because character matters. This is why it's important. Was by William A. Galston, who wrote, America values pretend Trump's defeat.
He talks about some 69% of Americans believe that the country could have dealt with COVID-19 more effectively, and 65% disapprove of how President Trump has handled the disease, including 61% of seniors. Then it says, another matter, the protests this summer following killing of black Americans by police is cutting against Mr. Trump. 64% of Americans disapprove of the president's response to these events, including 62% of the seniors. Mr. Trump's character and personal conduct are adding to his troubles. About half of Americans say that Mr. Biden has the right temperament and personality to be president, compared with 25% who say this of Mr. Trump. Now folks, concluding chapter after the break. Concluding folks, the debate happened, did not move the needle either way towards Trump. Even in the swing state like Pennsylvania, even though the issue of fracking came up, the needle has not moved a lot. Okay, but here are things that Biden is worried about. So are the Democrats, that they don't want to make the same mistakes as Biden fends off 16 playbook. President Trump is dipping into his 2016 playbook, using feed campaigning, rallies, and White House events to attack Democratic nominee Joe Biden over his political record and his mental stability, among other things. The barrage of criticism doesn't appear to have dented Mr. Biden so far. Polls show instead the former vice president has been seen as favorability ratings improve in the closing days of the 2020 race, according to the Wall Street Journal NBC News survey, reaching 43% positive and 42% negative in mid-October. Interesting. The whisper campaign. Looking at the polls and the numbers, some Democrats dare to whisper a Biden landslide. They're thinking of flipping Texas, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, and if it goes that way, you're looking at a absolutely landslide. But beware the Ides of November. Then it says, what happened at the debate? Nothing really. As it reported, Biden retains the edge. The debate was his last real chance to woo the large number of in-between voters who support Republican policies but oppose Mr. Trump. Initial polls indicate he won a thumbs up only from the same 42% of voters who have always been with him. Democratic hopeful Joe Biden gave a standard performance, but given his lead in national and swing state polls, that was all he needed. So it was a draw, and that's all Biden needed. Then he says, the president is struggling most against an enemy to whom he has no response, COVID-19. And finally, today's news, Biden promises free vaccine for everyone in US if he's elected. What a game changer. Now, has he picked up from our politicians and Sitaraman who announced it for Bihar, or did this come first and our guys picked it up? I don't know, folks. Jai Hind, interesting times. Let's wait for the 4th of November.
We believe in natural herbs and homemade remedies because the body deserves only purity. Think of natural products. Think of Sada Jeevan.